Not loud in your house, John? More for me, I suppose. Also, I don't think James needs to quote-unquote sleep on Majora's Mask. If anything, his look at that game reminded me of his look at this one. That's not bad, but very tough and very strange. Hello everyone, with the Zelda Tears of the Kingdom nearly upon us, and me not getting quite as deep into Breath of the Wild or Age of Calamity as I expected, but still made some more progress. I thought I would talk about one of my favorite installments in the series. In fact, what I consider to who really could use some more love, and also one that loves sticking impact on me. So here's why I think Zelda II, The Adventure Link on the NES is going to be a gem. Let's get started. As you can see, while the game itself didn't get into as much detail as one might expect, that it did introduce a lot of key concepts or detail in the manual, especially in the case of the Triforce that appeared on the back of Link's hand. And with that in mind, one of the concepts introduced to become a fixture of the entire series from that day forward. Whereas the first game established the Triforce of Wisdom in Zelda's possession and power in Ganon's, and it also established not only Triforce of Courage and also the idea that it was not merely found or given, but earned, and also how it would become vital to the series going forward, and especially like the first many appearance of Dark Link as well. And even though this often doesn't get as much attention as the very first game, a lot of the ideas introduced are just important, and that want to become key facets of the entire series going forward, which also should bring you to the next point. While a lot of the ideas were established in the first game, a lot of the ideas in terms of exploration and combat were expanded upon in many respects. And how, especially in case of the dungeons and the boss fights, that where the layout was definitely one to figure out in the original game. The second one definitely took things even further, with how many ways you could approach the situation, and the forests, the grasslands, deserts, and seaside, and even just like getting information in towns. And yes, while it did lead to some mimetic moments like I Am Error and Link getting a health pickup from a woman in red, it still established how even in the early days of the series, there's a lot being done in there. Continuing on, and this point will be touched upon again in a bit, would be the style and tone of the game, and even with the limitations ends of the time, this also builds on what the first game did in having like a style of kind of massive adventure and scope, and one of the first titles had battery backup or saves, which was not common. More often than not, you either needed passwords or you had just give it one go to finish the game. And there is a lot of content in this title at the moment, you might say, and it builds upon what was done previously, and subsequently lays foundations for what came next. While each game has its own take on the series, with some being more grounded, realistic take, others being more stylized. I think of the gameplay, this one stood out quite a bit at me and still does. The whole idea of upgrading your magic and your health meters through combat encounters definitely has element that borrows off from RPGs and early roguelikes. By the same token, rather than the usual overworld that was common at the time, in the first game, while it's still used for traversal, while doing a combat and was in dungeons, you actually end up going into a side-scrolling view, and even like something like the numbered lives definitely stands out. Granted, stuff remains. You still have a shield in one hand, sword in the other, and the sword can also fire projectiles when you have full health. But the way you use other items and spells is also been changed a bit, and that's one that I always kind of like about how that as well as a publisher. Even and though there's some people accuse them of constancy and keeping things consistent, I think the ones that always stood out me when they went side to say, and that was something completely different. While not being the most graphically violent game ever, nor having anything as risque as the Barkeep Telma and Twilight Princess, as they playing this again as well as in comparison to the first game, the tone presentation are definitely much darker than the first one. Especially in terms of how the manual lays out the stakes, where after Ganon's fall, the peace of the kingdom is short-lived as Zelda's been cursed into a sleeping sickness, which can only be awakened once Traveler's Courage is found and combined with the other two pieces. And at the same time, Ganon's followers basically want Link's blood, not in just the figurative sense, but to actually use it to revive Ganon as well. And the series has pulled a lot over time from The Legend of King Arthur and Tolkien's work, and Hobbit and Lord in particular. So it's not a total stretch, but it definitely was as a first snippet example I can think of, chronologically speaking, at least in the release order, of how darker themes can seep in the series, especially we're about to experience with Tears of the Kingdom, very much being Breath of the Wild, what Majora's Mask was Ocarina of Time, builds upon the gameplay mechanics that is established, but also thematically darker in terms of story and presentation. While the sequel may often be contested in terms of quality, I'm now circling back to the impact of the Legend franchise is still significant. That again, the Triforce of Courage became a fixture of the series lore ever since, as did the Dark Link in many ways as well. And whether it's Breath of the Wild's progression system or other installments' darker tones, love it or hate it, as you can definitely tell, I fall on the love side. Much of the canon does owe a lot to Zelda 2. In fact, I think I might owe my fandom to it. Because I actually played this game first when I was younger, or before I'd ever played the first one or any other installment up to that point. Right on the NES I used to have, that my family friend named Dan gave me. That I kept at it no matter how many times I fell, no matter how many times a beast got me, no matter how many times I traversed that field, and I still have no problem doing it all over again, no matter whether it's this game or any other that are in the series. So once I pick up Tears of the Kingdom tomorrow, I definitely have this game to thank for that. And I'm definitely saying that because I've been very good at avoiding the leaks, and I definitely don't want the big ends anyone after me. I mean, maybe it'll be moblins, but that will be all for now. And this has been one of the legends of what people speak. Take care, everyone.